Happy New Year, happy 2022. And I know that many times at the beginning of the year, people like to offer up predictions, and perhaps you would like a prediction. My specialty, although I have made very accurate predictions, is actually energy and patterns. So with that, I create your weekly transformational forecast for you, not just to give you insights about the energies, but to give you a sense of how it is transforming us and what you can do to partake in that transformation. All that being said, I would like to go ahead and offer up some transformational insights, not just for this week, but for the year ahead, as best I can. So, starting with this week's energies, I do see that there is what I would say feels like sort of like, when you're trying to get the lid off of a jar and it's really tight, and all of a sudden it just sort of like comes open. That's the energy. In terms of actual words and why, that may be a little bit harder to do. But basically, it's as if we've been sort of trying to make something happen, and we're wanting to kind of push through, let's say, the holidays and get to the other side, and yay, it's the new year. But instead what happens is when that jar kind of flipped open, all the contents came falling out, and it wasn't exactly what we were planning for the jar opening. So it's that kind of an energy. You may be experiencing some kind of chaotic, unexpected adventure, or perhaps things are feeling stuck still and they're about to burst, but it's that sort of frequency that feels a little bit unpredictable and also a little bit exciting. Again, sort of like opening up that champagne bottle. In terms of what we are moving through, there is a sense of not just the new, but a lot of the old stuff is still being kind of cleaned up and swept up. So 2021 isn't really over. It's sort of still overlapping a bit, similar to the Chinese New Year that starts later in January. The energy of finishing and completion of 2021 is still there. So it feels like, we're almost there, like finishing up, our taxes, or finishing up, X, Y, or Z. So be patient and hold space for that anticipation and excitement of what's moving, but also don't be fully surprised if the contents come flying out unexpectedly. Now, let's go ahead and look at the year ahead. When I feel into this year, it feels far more hopeful than the past 2 years have been. And of course, anything moving us away from those really intense years, especially the kickoff of 2020 and moving through all that we were facing, will feel light in comparison. But I do want to say that there is a sense of more independence and hope for what we are wanting. And I'm going to say this in both the collective and individual way, because they are still very much the same. What we are experiencing inwardly often is influenced by the collective, and what we do for ourselves and what we are forging within ourselves impacts the collective. So it is this very interdependent relationship. Collectively, we are really trying to wake up, and we know this. It's been, kind of the call to action for quite some time, decades, centuries even. And the good thing is things are moving along more quickly than, sometimes it takes me by surprise at how many people are, sort of suddenly becoming really clear. And when I say waking up, I don't mean seeing the boogeyman or looking behind the curtain at the dirty laundry. It's more about really waking up to the fact, to the wisdom that you are this incredible being, that we are all these incredible beings that come in with this inherent power, and that what we do with that power is completely up to us. And until, let's say that waking up point, we often give away our power and find that we get stuck in sort of situations and thinking that makes us feel powerless. So the whole process is much more complex, but it can be as simple as recognizing where we are empowered, where we can and should, and I rarely use the word should, take responsibility. So what I see for 2022 is it's a year of really bringing more awareness around where are our choices and how are we participating in our own lives with consciousness, with action, and with awareness of what our soul is wanting. So that's the waking up piece. It's not just like, oh, I suddenly feel connected spiritually, or I'm getting in tune with my own intuitive, thinking, but to really merge and connect with that soul-led impulse of being here on the planet, and letting our relationship with our soul develop so that we're listening and we are living more in alignment with what our soul wants from us. The other thing with the numbers 2022, they all add up to the number 6 numerologically, and I'm not a numerologist and I'm not an astrologist, but I do have enough information. I've dabbled in all of this my whole life. My mother loved astrology and did everybody's charts, from the time I was a kid. And for my 13th birthday, she actually paid for me to have a numerology reading, which, if you put it in context, was, what would that be? The late 70s. So numbers and the stars are always fascinating. But what I will say about 2 + 2 + 2 is it equals the number 6, and 6 is very much a family number. We have been in pandemic lockdown for quite a long time, and we might be sort of done with, being around family. But this energy is really about the family of the heart, and it could be your actual family, but really connecting in and finding that family and the values of family, love, connection, caring for one another, really ringing strongly this year. And as well, because all of those 2s are, kind of bunched together there with a little bit of a 0 in between, the 2s are really a number of our intuitive, I want to say it a little differently. It really has a lot to do with kind of coming into our own intuitive awareness. But what I also want to say about the 2s is it's like this pairing, right? And so oftentimes we may not have the aha of our own intuitive awareness unless we've paired up with another being and discover what we already know. Maybe it's in a book even. We've read a book and then suddenly we recognize, I already have this information somehow, even before I read the book. As I'm reading it, I'm resonating because on a soul level, I already knew this information. But more so, it's going to be relational with actual people. So a lot of 2s indicating, connection and pairing up. And it could even be, with the several groups of 2, this community. And again, this family relationship and coming together. But what I want to point out about that 0 is that there is that sense of self in there, and so it's not about becoming so mergy that you forget self, and also to be open to the emptiness that is within you, or in a process when pairing up with people and collaborating, to make room for that emptiness and that unknown and that nothingness to be present, so that we can see what might grow from that. So the first half of the year feels quite a little bit long, but good. Active, moving toward what we want. And then I'm having a little bit of a harder time seeing the latter half of the year from, say, July on, but it does feel like it's intense. So again, not an expert in prediction, but very good at feeling and seeing the patterns. And part of what makes me actually really good at when I do predictions is I see patterns, and so it's like, where are we heading, right? If I'm following the pattern, I can see where we are heading. Individually, a lot of people are suffering in a lot of ways, and so do we want to keep playing out that suffering and add that to the collective so that we can continue the collective suffering? Or are we going to recognize that suffering is a call to soul action to start to navigate differently, deeper, and do some healing around that, and therefore adding healing to the collective? So these choices that we see happening out there, this is the other reason I don't necessarily love the idea of predictions. Things aren't necessarily happening to us, right? We are co-creating them. And so if someone's predicting that, something's going to happen to you, or, these energies are going to be intense, we're always at free will as to how we experience those energies. Are we going to, merge with them and have the least amount of resistance and say yes to the lessons that come and to the growth that comes? Or are we going to, fear it and then have reactions and then fight, continue fighting with ourselves and the world about whatever may be going on and create more suffering? So we always are at free will, always at choice, no matter what's going on out there. And trust me, I've had a lot of things going on out there that impact my life that make that choice really difficult. And at the same time, we remain in our power when we recognize we're making these choices, even if the choice is to simply surrender and say yes with as much of an open heart as possible. So, a lot of information. I do speak quickly, especially when I do readings for people. I get the information so quick and such. So if you need to slow down the video to a slower speed, that's perfectly fine. If there are any questions or comments, absolutely put them down below. Subscribe. I'd love to have you continue to follow my weekly forecasts. And if there's anything in particular you want me to look at, I am starting to look at ways to bring more information to you. So with that, have a great rest of this week, a happy 2022, and do what you can to stay open in the heart and find those places of family and connection.